The text that erased me from my own family arrived like a gnat. Tiny, irritating, and full of venom. We want a quiet Thanksgiving with your sister's family this year. Maybe you could skip this one. We need space. 6 bland sentences that told me, very clearly, to stay in my lane. I stared at my phone for a heartbeat, typed a single word, enjoy, and hit send. What my parents didn't know is that I just signed papers on an old stone villa in Italy. And while they were busy planning a peaceful holiday without me, I was about to throw a Thanksgiving so radiant they'd feel its warmth from an ocean away. Before I dig in, tell me where you're watching from in the comments, and tap like and subscribe if family drama makes your holidays look downright serene by comparison. My name is Rowan Pierce. I'm 33, the eldest daughter of Marjorie and Alan Pierce, and my resume could be used as a doorstop. Straight A's, scholarships, a decade climbing from junior product analyst to executive VP at Helix Systems. I paid for my own textbooks, rent, and braces with part-time jobs and a tolerance for cheap coffee. If our family were a stage play, I was the dependable understudy, ready, steady, invisible, while my younger sister Tessa stood center stage, bathed in light. Tessa is 5 years younger and born with a confetti aura. She has the kind of charisma that makes people hand her their umbrellas and their car keys without realizing they've done it. When I was 19, I was taking night classes and managing a smoothie shop. When she turned 16, she got a surprise car with a bow bigger than our mailbox. When I pieced together grants and shifts to get through college, my parents picked up her tuition in full. Rowan's so capable, Mom would say the way other moms say Rowan has freckles. Compliment and curse in one breath. It wasn't that my parents didn't love me. They did, in that practical way Midwestern parents love: casseroles on the porch, a ride to the airport, a proud of you attached to an errand list. But affection flowed toward the squeaky wheel. Tessa's wheel squeaked a lot: first heartbreak, first apartment, first baby, second baby, and the periodic "maybe Nate will find a different job" updates. Every family conversation bent toward her gravity. I learned to tuck my wins in small pockets and smile. The day I became executive VP of product at Helix Systems, my whole team surprised me with orchids and a whiteboard full of doodle trophies. I sent my parents a photo of the offer letter. Mom replied, "So exciting." Speaking of exciting, Tessa got Ava into the Montessori school. We're over the moon. The words didn't bruise anymore. They just thudded. What I didn't share with them was the dream I'd fed in secret for years, a place in the hills of central Italy. I fell in love with Umbria during a college semester: rolling hills, stone towns perched on cliffs, markets that smell like rosemary and oranges. I'd scroll through listings at 2 a.m., promising myself someday. Last September, someday called. An agent sent photos of an 18th century farmhouse outside Todi. Thick walls, chestnut beams, a terracotta roof like folded cookies, and 3 acres of olive trees. The kitchen had a hearth you could roast a constellation in. I ran the numbers twice, then again. With my promotion and years of saving and stock vesting, I could afford it. I closed on a rainy Tuesday and christened it Casa del Vigna, House of Vines. I hadn't told a soul. I wanted to unveil it at Thanksgiving, show them what capable could build when no one was looking. Then the text came. "Hi, sweetheart. We've been thinking. We want a quiet Thanksgiving with just Tessa and the kids this year. Maybe you could skip this one. We need space. You understand, right? Love you." I read it once. Twice. A third time, like the meaning might change if I stared hard enough. Nothing inside me shattered. It was more like a hinge finally swinging all the way open. I saw 20 years of "you don't mind, do you?" and weird timing, and let's keep the focus on the little ones. I remembered last Thanksgiving when they seated my then boyfriend and me at the cramped card table because we ran out of room, while the new in-laws got prime seats by the fireplace. I remembered announcing my promotion and Mom saying, "We're thrilled, honey." Okay, everyone, Ava spelled her name with a backwards S. Isn't that darling? I typed enjoy and felt, for the first time in a long time, like I had chosen myself. People will tell you the opposite of resentment is forgiveness. I think it's creation. If I wasn't welcome at their table, I'd set my own. I pulled out a notebook on my little balcony in San Diego, waves unlacing themselves against the pier, and wrote at the top, Thanksgiving, Casa del Vigna. Then I wrote names, not the ones who expected me to fold myself smaller, but the ones who had always made room. Aunt Vivian went first on my call list. She's my mother's older sister, a psychology professor whose laughter fills a room and whose questions go right to the bone. She'd been my soft place since high school. She answered on the second ring. Rowan, to what do I owe the honor on a weekday evening? They asked me to skip Thanksgiving, I said. The words felt strangely light as they left my mouth. A beat of silence, then a low whistle. Oh, sweetheart. I bought a house, I blurted, because if I didn't say it fast, I might keep it secret forever. In Umbria. Stone walls, almond trees, a kitchen that looks like it's been telling stories for 200 years. I'm hosting Thanksgiving there. Will you come? I pictured her grinning into the receiver. Tell me the dates before my dean tries to schedule a faculty dinner I'll mysteriously have to miss. When we hung up, I called my cousins. Mateo, my Uncle Grant's son, is a pediatrician in Chicago who knows a joke for every shot. Lila, my Aunt Sloane's daughter, is an architect in Seattle who wears lipstick like battle paint and builds museums that make children whisper. Are you kidding? Lila hollered when I explained. Thanksgiving in Italy? I'll draw up a packing list that's just stretchy pants written 12 times. Mateo was gentler. You okay? He asked. I am now, I said, and meant it. Count me in. Uncle Grant and Aunt Sloane said yes so fast I heard their suitcases squeak. Their daughters, Wren and Piper, both in college, texted a string of screaming emojis. Uncle Oliver and his husband Patrick, my most traveling-est relatives, rearranged a trip to Lisbon to join. Even my mother's brother, Theo, and his partner, Luis, said they'd happily trade his parents' tense Virginia hem ritual for my Umbrian experiment. Each yes untied a knot. The house that had lived only in my head was about to breathe. 3 days later, I got a text from a number I didn't expect. Nate, Tessa's husband. Hey, can we talk? Suspicion prickled. I found a quiet bench behind my office building and called. He answered on the first ring. Rowan, hi. Is this a bad time? What's up? I heard, from Wren, that you're doing something for Thanksgiving. I kept my tone neutral. Something. Listen. He dropped his voice. Your parents told us you weren't coming. Tessa felt weird about it, but you know the drill. And then things with your folks have been tense. Money stuff. They'd offered to help with the kids' tuition, and then suddenly, boundaries. He exhaled. Long story short, I think Mel is burned out on being the center of their movie. If there's space, if you want us, we'd love to come. The kids would lose their minds over Italy. But I'll only ask if it won't make your thing hard. I held my breath. My first instinct was no. No invitations to replay old scenes in my new home. No reruns. But the air in the alleys smelled like eucalyptus and asphalt, and I thought of Dr. Saito, my therapist, asking last week, what would it look like to set boundaries without building a fortress? I told Nate the truth. Let me think about it. This has to be different. If you come, it's on my terms. Understood, he said. And thanks for considering. That night, I booked an emergency telehealth session with Dr. Saito. Am I sabotaging myself if I invite Tessa? I asked. Will I wake up in Italy and realize I built a stage for the same play? Maybe, she said. Maybe not. What's different? It's my house, I said slowly. My guest list. My menu. No parents curating the conversation. And you, she added, are different. The you who typed enjoy might not let the old choreography run the show. I want to be generous, I admitted. I also want to be free. Both can be true, she said. You can be generous with clear rules. The next morning, I texted Nate. You're all welcome. Tell Tessa I'll send details. One condition. This is my gathering. I set the tone. If that's okay, we'd love to have you. He replied with a dozen praying hands emojis and a thank you long enough to need a second bubble. 2 weeks flew. I moved through my days like a secret agent, finalizing quarterly roadmaps at work, then covertly ordering linen shipped to Italy. I emailed my property manager, Louisa, a list that read like a fairy tale. Extra duvets, more plates, 3 high chairs, a carpenter to reinforce the long farm table. She replied with a photo of the dining room glowing amber. Casa del Vigna is ready, she wrote. She is happy to have a family. I booked a flight that left after a board review, landed in Rome at dawn, and put me behind a tiny Fiat with a gearshift pattern like a puzzle. The drive north unspooled in olive groves and hazy gold. When the villa came into view, a pale stone sweep tucked among silvery trees, I actually laughed. I parked and stood alone in the courtyard, my suitcase a small blue square, and listened. Wind flattened the grass. Somewhere a bell rang. The house smelled like wood smoke and lemon oil when I pushed the door open, like it had been waiting a long time to have stories poured into it. The kitchen took my breath. A wood-fired hearth, a marble table pocked with old knife marks, copper pot's freckles on a wall. I ran my hand along the stone like hello. In the living room, a farmhouse table long enough to host a parliament. Upstairs, 5 bedrooms, each with a personality. The attic, a cozy space perfect for the college cousins and the kids. Behind the house, a terrace looked across a small valley, folds of hills like a sleeping animal. I cried a little. I'm not dramatic by nature, but sometimes the life you're building turns and looks at you, and you realize you made a doorway where there used to be a wall. The neighbors, the Bernardis, appeared that afternoon with a basket of persimmons and a bottle of their own olive oil. My Italian was rusty. Their English was merry. We negotiated warmth with our hands. Americana festa? Signora Bernardi asked, miming carving a bird. Turkey, I confirmed, flapping my arms, and we both laughed ourselves rosy. She said the butcher in town would have a good one. DCD me, she instructed. Tell them I sent you. I spent Wednesday in the market in Orvieto. Stalls so vibrant they looked staged, eggplants gleaming, mushrooms like lace, wheels of pecorino stacked like planets. I traded cranberries for pomegranates and figs, cornbread for rustic loaves scented with sage. The butcher, a man with forearms like tree trunks, promised a turkey from a farm nearby. Buono. Felice, he said, patting his heart. Good. Happy. I believed him. By noon Thursday, the first car rattled over the drive. I ran outside as a hatchback door flew up like a stage curtain and Aunt Vivian's arms came at me. My girl, she said, holding my face. Look at what you did. Lila was next, stripes and red lipstick, jogging around the courtyard with her phone. We are never eating box stuffing again, she declared, filming the roofline. Matteo carried in flowers and a cooler like a doctor on a mission. Within minutes, we were 6 voices in the kitchen at once, chopping and laughing and telling stories we all knew by heart. The house filled like a lung. Uncle Grant's boisterous voice boomed in the entryway as he maneuvered 2 suitcases and a baguette like a baton. Aunt Sloane, silver hair in a bun, sweater knotted at her shoulders, set a platter of cookies on the counter and immediately started rinsing grapes as if she'd been doing it there for decades. Wren and Piper shrieked over the attic like they'd found a treasure chest. Uncle Oliver and Patrick swept in at twilight with 2 cases of wine, a corkscrew that looked older than me, and a bouquet of jokes. Theo and Luis arrived last, missing 1 train and laughing about it. Nate and Tessa pulled up just as the last strip of sun slipped behind the hills. Ava and Milo beat their parents to the front steps. Aunt Ro. Ava shouted she's 9 and all limbs. Milo, 7 and still soft at the edges, barreled into me with a force that knocked the breath from my lungs in the best way. Do you have a secret room? He whispered immediately. We've got an attic where dragons live if you feed them cookies, I said gravely, and his eyes went enormous. Tessa climbed out slowly, taking the courtyard in. We hadn't spoken since the invitation. She looked tired around the eyes, but that brightness that always got her an extra dumpling was still there. For a second, we simply stood. It's beautiful, she said finally, voice soft as paper. Then, to my astonishment, thank you for inviting us. It's good to see you, I said, and realized I meant it. The house made space for everyone like it had been waiting its whole life for this particular noise. That first night, dinner was chaotic, pasta eaten standing up because the bread smelled too good to sit, a bottle of wine opened on the terrace, Wren teaching Milo how to say grazie without swallowing Mazzie. We drifted to bed late, full of travel and new air. Thanksgiving morning, I woke before dawn. I padded downstairs in wool socks and put coffee on the stove. Outside, the hills were bruised blue and perfect. I set 2 dozen eggs on the counter, laid pomegranates like jewels, and breathed in the silence before a house wakes. The smallest noises amplified: a creak, a sigh, a distant kettle squeal. It didn't stay quiet. James, Patrick's given name that only his mother and Uncle Oliver use when they're teasing, volunteered to walk down to the bakery in the village, returning with croissants so flaky they disintegrated if you looked at them. Aunt Vivian took charge of breakfast with the ease of someone who has fed students from Tupperware in office hours for 30 years. Soon bodies padded in, sleepy and happy, claiming mugs and chairs, the conversation a low purr. We split into teams without anyone assigning anything. Lila drew a draft of the table arrangement on a sticky note as if she were designing a museum lobby. Mateo and I took the main cooking, he on mashed potatoes like a surgeon, me on the turkey, rubbing herbs between my fingers until the smell rose. Uncle Grant and Nate took the kids to the village for flowers and a mission to find the best oranges in Umbria. Wren and Piper commandeered the attic crew to make place cards. Ava came back with her cheeks flushed and a paper crown that read Regina della Tavola, Queen of the Table. I didn't tell her I had briefly considered giving myself that title. In the kitchen, it felt like the opposite of my mother's holidays. There, every action was a test. Don't bruise the basil. Who put the spoon there? Here, no one needed to prove a thing. Lila sautéed greens, humming. Mateo told a story about a tiny patient who had decided his otoscope was a lightsaber. Aunt Vivian popped in to press a kiss to my temple and vanished again with a bag of garbage. We pulled a pie crust together and filled it with apples, and a puddle of Armagnac Patrick accidentally splashed in. Everything smelled like butter and possibility. Around noon, the buzz shifted. Phones vibrated across the house like cicadas. Ro, Ren called from the living room. You'll want to see this. Everyone had some version of the same text. My mother, to various relatives. Are you doing anything for Thanksgiving? Tessa's not answering. Dinner at our house is at 4. The messages switched from practical to plaintive. Where is everyone? We had placed settings ready. Please call. The old reflex to soothe, to explain, to hurry toward their discomfort, threatened to rear its head. I inhaled, felt the weight of the wooden spoon in my hand, then shook my head. We'll tell them later, I said. Today, this moment, before dinner. It's ours. Let's keep it light. Tessa approached me in the hall as the family drifted back to their tasks. She watched me for a long beat, then said, I should have told them. We were coming here. You don't owe them an itinerary, I said. Her mouth tilted. I know. I still feel pulled. She looked around the sun-bright kitchen, the flurry of bodies, the table blooming under Lila's hands. When did you get so decisive, Ro? When I got tired, I said. Tired enough to try something different. I'm proud of you, she said, so quietly I almost missed it. We called everyone to change just after 3. The house transformed in 20 minutes, jeans to skirts, messy buns to lipstick, boys in collared shirts pulled out of backpacks like flags. The dining room had been remade by Lila's vision: linen runners, mismatched candles, low bowls of pomegranates and olive leaves. Sunlight snagged in every glass. I stood at the head of the table, the short end where the host sits in European houses, the spot no one ever gave me at home, and tried to talk. For a moment, my throat betrayed me. I took a breath and tried again. Thank you, I said, and my voice came out steady. For flying across an ocean on short notice. For making this house feel like it's been lived in forever. I didn't know what I was doing when I sent those messages. I just knew I wanted a Thanksgiving where no one had to shrink. I wanted to be surrounded by people who see me. Thank you for seeing me. They lifted their glasses. Vivian said to Rowan, who built a table and then pulled up enough chairs. Lila chimed in to new traditions. Mateo to old recipes. Patrick raised his glass and added, to houses that smell like butter, and we all dissolved. Dinner was the kind of communal magic you can't orchestrate. The turkey came out a crisp miracle. The pomegranate fig sauce turned out jewel-bright and tart. Mateo's potatoes were silk. Someone put on a playlist of American classics and Italian ballads, and Tessa sang along to both, surprising me with the low warmth in her voice. Conversation swerved from Patrick's stories of a wine harvest in Portugal to Ren's first semester antics to Vivian's undergrads and their disastrous research proposals. I watched people I loved pass plates to other people I loved, watched the kids fall asleep and wake up and ask for pie. Tessa reached for the gravy boat and said loudly, "This is the best turkey I've ever had, and I intend to tell Mom that the minute she calls." The cousins who weren't her children cheered. After pie, pumpkin alongside a glossy crostata, we stood to share thanks. Lila was grateful for flights that land on time and women who build houses. Grant said he was thankful for red wine and daughters who let him oversalt and pretend it's a technique. Vivian said she was grateful for hard conversations and soft landings. When it was Nate's turn, he squeezed Tessa's hand. "I'm thankful Rowan gave us a chance to try again." Tessa swallowed and said, simply, "Me too." We were pouring coffee when Leah, Piper's best friend, drafted as villa photographer, suggested a photo. We crowded in front of the fireplace, ash and fairy lights and grins. "One serious," she coached. "One silly." The silly one is the one that counts, the kids mid-jump, Patrick with a cork in his teeth, Vivian blowing me a kiss. Phones pinged as we collapsed on sofas. A text from my mother turned the room quiet. "Where are you?" No punctuation, just those words, as if she'd stared at the keyboard until it chose a sentence for her. Tessa looked at me. I nodded. She hit call, put her phone on speaker, and set it on the table. "Mel?" My mother's voice came thin, worried, then sharp. "Where are you?" "We've been waiting for hours." "We're fine," Tessa said. "We're together." "Together where?" "With who?" "In Italy," Tessa said, like she was naming the moon. "At Rowan's house." Silence iced the line. In the background, I could hear drawers, maybe, or my father pacing. "Your sister's in Boston," Mom said, as if insisting to the universe. "I'm not," I called, stepping closer. "Hi, Mom." "I'm here." "The whole family?" she asked, voice going smaller. "Without us?" "Everyone but you and Dad," I said, careful to keep any heat out of it. "We're having a wonderful time." A long, long pause. "We asked for a peaceful Thanksgiving," she whispered. "That's exactly what we're having," I said. She hung up. The room exhaled. Phones began chiming again, cousins, uncles, friends texting versions of "your parents are calling everyone" and "did you really go to Italy?" Lila considered for a second and then switched her phone to airplane mode. "Tomorrow problem," she said. "Tonight, dance party." And so we did. We dragged the rug back, turned up a ballad that would make any Italian nonna cry, and taught the kids the moves to songs we'd learned at weddings in the 2000s. I danced with Vivian, then with Ren, then with Milo on my feet like wooden clogs. I thought I built this. And then immediately corrected myself. We built this. Together. I was rinsing champagne flutes when my phone lit up with my father's name. I hesitated for a second, for a whole childhood, then answered and stepped onto the terrace. "Where is everyone?" he asked, no prelude. "At my house," I said, and the words felt right in my mouth. "Your mother is upset," he said, as if it were a weather report. "We set the table for 14. You asked me to skip it," I said. "I did. We meant quiet. Not this." His voice cracked a little on the last word. "Not this." I got tired of being an afterthought at my own family's table, I said, not unkindly. So I made a new one. "It wasn't like that, Ro." "You don't get to decide how it was for me," I said gently. "You don't have to agree. But I need you to understand I won't pretend anymore." He didn't answer for a beat. The night held its breath. Finally he said, grudging and honest, fair. "I'm going back in," I said. "We can talk tomorrow." I slept like wood. Morning sun poured through the shutters. I met Vivian in the kitchen, the quiet committee. She poured coffee into my favorite chipped cup. "How's your heart?" she asked. "Full," I said. "Tender." Both things were true. By 9, the house was stirring. Someone cracked eggs. Someone else hollered for socks. At 10, Tessa appeared in the doorway to the study with my phone in her hand. "They've called 100 times," she said. "Let's do it." We dialed on speaker. Mom answered immediately. "Cassandra." Only my full name when she's terrified or furious. We've been up half the night. I turned my phone off, I said. You blindsided us, she said. The whole family. Do you have any idea how humiliating it was to find out you'd all left the country without telling us? Do you have any idea how humiliating it was to be told not to come? The words came calm. You asked me to skip Thanksgiving with my own parents. That isn't what we meant. Then say what you meant, I replied, the therapist in my head proud of me from 1,000 miles away. We meant we needed a break, she said, and the words sounded like a pebble in her mouth. Fewer people. Less pressure. Fewer people excluding me, I said. Less pressure for you, more for me. She inhaled sharply. I could hear my father in the background. Put Mel on, he called. She's here, Tessa said, stepping into the sound. We're both here. Oh, thank God, Mom breathed. When are you flying home? We can do a second dinner Sunday. We're staying through the weekend, Tessa said, steady. And Mom? You need to hear Rowan. My father took the phone. We've always supported you, Rowan, he said defensively. We helped you move. You love me, I said, because I didn't want to fight about facts we both knew. But support isn't the same as seeing. Do you know what I do in my job, Dad? Can you tell me the last time you asked without changing the subject to daycare drop-off or Tessa's volunteer shift? Silence. The kind that isn't a weapon, just recognition. I don't need an apology, I said. I need you to consider what it's been like for me. I need you to stop assuming I don't have feelings because I'm competent. I need you to stop treating my life like an intermission. Tessa squeezed my hand so hard her knuckles went white. They're right, she said into the phone. I've watched you do it. I've benefited from it. I'm sorry. My mother made a small noise, like a balloon losing air. I thought you wanted it that way, she said, and I believed she did. It's easier to believe the oldest child doesn't need when you're busy with the younger one's storms. I wanted a family where I didn't have to perform to be noticed, I said. And when I couldn't find that, I created it. What do you want from us? My father asked, and the question was soft, not a trap, an invitation. Curiosity, I said. Respect. Balance. When I tell you I bought a house, ask me what color the shutters are. When I tell you I landed a client, ask what it means. When Tessa talks about the kids, listen. But don't forget I'm here too. There was a pause long enough that Tessa grimaced. Then my mother said, we can try. I let the words land where they landed. Good. And next year, my father said, oddly shy. Are we invited? You're invited, I said. To my house. To my table. If you can come as yourselves and not as the directors of the show. We'll practice, Mom said, and in the background, I heard her laugh a little through tears, like maybe she was relieved not to be stage managing. The rest of the weekend tasted like relief. We took the kids to an olive mill and let them watch green fruit turn into gold. We toured a hill town where cats own the sunlit stairs. We ate leftovers cold from the fridge and invented a new tradition. Friday night toast and anthe, boasts, where everyone had to toast someone else's tiny win from the day. Ren toasted Milo for not complaining once during a castle tour. Vivian toasted me for making gravy without crying. We sat around the fire and told stories we hadn't told before. Tessa apologized once, messy and sincere, and then didn't over-apologize to make the room about her remorse. We found a new way to stand beside each other without stepping on toes. When everyone left on Sunday, the house exhaled. The table looked startled without its army of plates. Lila tucked a note into the pantry that I didn't find for months. You made a life, it read in Sharpie. We see it. We see you. In the months that followed, nothing turned cinematic. There was no grand epiphany with violins. My parents stumbled and then shuffled forward. My mom started our weekly calls by asking about my week before telling me who lost a tooth. My dad sent a link to an article about managing product roadmaps, and even though it was 5 years old and written by someone who had obviously never met a deadline, I understood what he was trying to do. When I told them about a contract I'd won, they stayed in the conversation long enough for me to finish a sentence. When I sent a photo of the olive harvest, Mom replied, "Tell me everything about the neighbors." That everything was new. Tessa and I texted like sisters who were learning each other again. Not just kid photos and SOS can I borrow your dress, but real things. I went to therapy, she wrote one Tuesday. It was eye-opening. Did you know you're allowed to not be the sun? Wild, I texted back. Did you know you're allowed to want things just because? Next November, they came to Casa del Vigna. They arrived small, without the invisible clipboard that used to hover over every holiday. My mother walked into the kitchen and looked around like she had entered a cathedral. She touched the marble counter, traced the crack in the hearth, and turned to me with tears on her face. "This is extraordinary," she said. "You made something beautiful." My father went outside and stood at the terrace with his hands in his pockets for a long time. Later he told me, not expertly, that the house felt like me, solid and warm and full of doors. That second Thanksgiving tasted different. Mom asked where she could help and accepted the living room as an answer. Dad watched Nate teach Milo how to slice mushrooms and said nothing, which was exactly right. Tessa and I packed leftovers together like we'd been doing it for years. When we said what we were thankful for, my mother said, second drafts. My father said, learning a new way to be a family. I said, this table. I won't lie and say we never slid back. It's astonishing how old grooves guide your feet. But I had learned something precious in the messy middle between being told to skip Thanksgiving and hearing my mother say she's proud of me. Sometimes revenge isn't scorched earth. Sometimes it's planting a vineyard and inviting everyone who knows how to tend things. Sometimes the sharpest clapback is a soft place that says, you can join me here if you're willing to sit differently. If you made it this far, I want to hear you. Have you ever built a new tradition because the old one didn't fit? Did you ever take a no and turn it into a better yes? Tell me in the comments. And if this story gave you the nudge to set your own table, hit like and subscribe. There are more chapters to come. For what it's worth, the most peaceful Thanksgiving I've ever had started with a text that told me I wasn't wanted. I believed them. Then I chose myself. And once I did, the people who were willing to see me found their way to my door.